Hi guys, welcome to the next lesson in Game Maker and making the chicken and egg program. So in this lesson we're going to look at making sounds and backgrounds. Pretty simple task. The topics we're looking at: creating sounds, obviously, creating backgrounds, and using the stretch editing tool. Very similar to I showed you in the Sprites, where you can go on edit. It takes you into an internal drawing program within Game Maker, and you can go and make changes and edit the image files within Game Maker. It's a great tool. I had some students really get into this tool in previous years and start to create animated sprites. So it's a challenge I'll put out there for you to get to know that tool, because it's a great tool to allow you to create all your own resources and images and even animated images within that tool. But we'll talk more about that later. So the learning intentions for this lesson are to understand how to make sounds and understand how to make backgrounds. Now it's basically creating resources for the game, using either the menu option if you're in advanced mode, or using the drop down menus. On resources, there's a drop down menu for resources, and in there are all those same things that are on the ribbon up the top of the screen in advanced mode. So very similar process. You should be getting used to that by now, especially applying the naming conventions, and you'll realize why I keep enforcing that in future lessons, because it becomes very critical to have those extensions on the start of the resources that you're creating. And obviously how to edit images using that editing tool that I showed you in Sprites, and I'll actually use one of the tools within there to edit the sky background that we're going to create. In the end, your success criteria, pretty straightforward again: successfully create sound resources, successfully create background resources, and successfully edit the sky background. So that's demonstrating your success if you can create all these things, and it definitely isn't a hard process. So let's get into it. So in this lesson, the first thing we're going to have a look at is creating some sounds. So last lesson we created sprites, and I've just opened up my file that I was working on last lesson, and there my sprites are ready to go and use. So this lesson we're going to create a sound. Now I've already got a sound sitting in there with nothing associated with it, and as I said before, if you've got something like that, you can delete them. So that would have been having a practice. We'll just go delete, and now I've got no sounds in there. All I've got is my sprites that we created in last lesson. So there's two sounds we're going to create. One is a chicken cheeping sound, and the other is an egg breaking sound. So very similar process to that of creating sprites. We used the create sprite button last time, or we could have gone resources sprite to create it. This time we're creating a sound. So it's a little speaker, it says create sound there. If we click on it, this sound is going to be the tweet sound. So it's the chicken going tweet. So if we go SND for sound, underscore, and we'll call it tweet. So SND for sound, it could be capitals, it could be lowercase, doesn't matter, as long as you're referencing that it is a sound. If we go load sound and then track through to where you saved your sound files, so I'm just going into that now. So we've got cheap, so I'll click on cheap and it loads the cheap file into there, and it's just a normal sound file. You don't have to change anything else in here at this stage. You can listen to it turn my speakers on to be able to listen to it. And there's the cheeping sound, if you can hear it coming in over the mic. And then you can turn it back off. If you go OK, we've now got a sound file in there called cheep. So you basically, to summarize, you click on the resources, create sound, the dialog box appears, search through for the cheep file, call it sound.cheep, and away you go, you've created, you can save it. So the other sound we've got to do is the egg breaking sound. So same process again. Last time I clicked on this time I'm going to go up to resources, create sound. I get another sound allocation here. If we go to load sound, it remembers where I was. So the egg breaking is a splat sound. So if we click on splat, and we'll go SND underscore splat, and we can play it and have a listen to it. Pretty weird sound. Stop it and say OK to save it. So now we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sprites loaded up, and we've got 2 sounds loaded up. Rightio, so the next thing we're going to do, because it doesn't take you long to make a couple of sprites and your sounds, and the sounds are basically under the same format as creating the sprite, so you should be starting to get a hang of that. So similar system, we're going to create some backgrounds. Now the first background is just basically creating it the same way we have all of the other objects so far, but the second background we're going to modify it. So the first background we're going to create is for the barn. So if we go to our resources again, up the top here we can go create background, and if we go load backgrounds, we've got our barn. So load that in. Don't forget to change the name, so we'll call it BG underscore barn, and click on OK, and we've got our barn background in there. The second background we're going to create is the sky, but we've got to change the size of it so it stretches across the screen. So if we go, this time I'm going to go resources, create background, we're going to go load background, and we're going to grab the sky. Again, change the name, so BG underscore sky, let's say hyphen underscore sky. Now to change the size of it, we need to go to edit background, and there's a lot of tools in here. I mentioned when we're doing the sprites that you go in and edit sprites. This is a similar area going into the drawing side of the Game Maker program, and you can change things within here. Now the thing we need to do is change this from being a square swatch. It's basically 200 by 200 it says here, and we're going to change it so it stretches across the width of our screen size that we're working on. So if we go to transform, and we're going to stretch it. Now there's a thing called aspect ratio. Yours may be turned on or turned off. I'm not sure which it'll be. If you've been playing around, you may have already turned it off. The main thing is you've got to have it off, because the aspect ratio will tie in the 2 dimensions to each other. So at the moment, if aspect ratio is on and I change this to 200, you'll notice that the pixels on the corresponding XY coordinate, or up down, changes with it. If you turn the aspect ratio off, you can modify that. Now it's supposed to be 100 by 200 at the top, and then we want 1920 192 by 384. In the bottom, our quality is still at normal, and if we click on OK, so when you've completed your background and your stretch, your sizings and your dialog boxes should represent what we've got here. So we've got normal quality, we've got 192 by 384, it's called background sky, and you should be able to click on OK and you will have completed your two backgrounds.